yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like when we moved to town.
Just politically incorrect, you go with any, you put it on a sock, somebody will wear it. That was that kind of store.
Yeah, the drummer in the band's got a bunch of them. There's them all the time. One's with the chicken feet. Ridiculous.
That's funny. I think it's Xavier Bennett chicken. He's a little just chicken whisperer.
No, I don't. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna bring this workshop to order. Yes, roll call to order.
Okay, so we'll waive the pledge to the flag, and we'll begin with roll call. Counselor Albert?
Here.
Counselor Colby?
Here.
Counselor Ward?
Here.
Counselor McTevier?
Here.
Counselor Bickford?
Here.
Counselor Crafts? And Counselor Brunel.
He's not here yet.
Should be soon, okay. The first item is the library.
And before you start, I wanna, is there any questions about last Thursday's, warrant signatures? Any questions anybody wants from the council on that? Has it been settled to everybody's satisfaction?
Good evening.
How are you, Chris?
Good. How is everybody?
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment before you start?
Yeah.
I could hear you all say here and present, but it would be nice if you could speak up so that, my hearing is not that great. I mean, I'm kind of an old lady.
My wife says mine isn't either, so.
It'd be nice if you could speak up so we can hear you.
Words out of my mouth.
Basically, I wanted to try to get it, is everything all right? Everybody's understands how it's supposed to go and all that?
Yep, I'm good.
And that's fine. And one other thing I want to do before we get going, wants to reserve Fireman's Banquet. So it's a good time. And it's RSVP by 4/1/16 in Brunswick. Other than that, now Diane.
Okay, I'm just going to kick it off here. As I stated at the last meeting, that this is the very first rough draft of the budget, so we're still fine-tuning some numbers, and as some of you already know, we have to, in order to do the wages and benefits, we have to create and develop our own spreadsheet. And sometimes that poses problems for us, especially if there's a cell off or if we've missed something. So we have been looking at it today, and we've found some discrepancies, so there are going to be some wage lines and benefit lines that are going to be changed further, but I'm not going to do that until we've gone through the whole budget, and I'm going to update everything all at once. They're not substantial changes, so that's why I'm not going to do it right now. The other thing that I wanted to mention is the medical insurance lines. Even though that I've proposed a 9% increase to take effect starting in January, some of the lines may look like it's more than that, and that's because each year at open enrollment, the employees get to decide whether they want to drop family members or take on family members, or if they've taken the insurance opt-out. If they don't want to take that anymore and come on to our insurance, that's going to either inflate our insurance number or really significantly drop it. And we've had those occasions this past year, plus new employees that may have come on, may have taken a family plan where the older employee that left and retired may have only had a single, so that's going to impact the budget figures. And I'll draw your attention to those as we go through them. Case in point is the medical insurance under the library. That went up significantly in this fiscal year budget, but that's because we had someone that retired. The new one came in, took a more healthy plan. So covered the whole family versus a single coverage. So that's going to inflate your medical insurance. The other one is when you have vacancies, we don't know who we're going to hire. We don't know what plan they're going to take, so we always budget the family plan. So as we go through this process, there might be some decreases in the budget as we fill these positions. Now I'll turn it over to you. Thank
Ask
you.
a quick question before we, excuse me, forgive me. So when is standard open enrollment?
It's, for our plan, it's usually starts in November
Okay.
for a January 1st effective date.
Thank you.
When we were under the self-insured plan, it was a July 1st, but now we're on January 1st. It's a calendar year.
For,
Thank you.
just a general overview, what's your goal for tonight associated with that? How much in depth do we to go with each individual item, concept?
As far as the line items, I think tonight, Diane's here to answer the questions, so if you have questions, ask them tonight. So go as detailed as you want on
as the
some of
items out
these.
there. Okay.
And then we can come back later. If there's no questions, that's fine, but I think tonight's the night that you should do your questions, because typically we don't have another budget meeting where the department heads will be here to answer these questions. That's why we do department by department, so. And like I say, it's a working document. There are gonna be some changes, and I would like to do those all at once and then bring them back to you and list you to what those changes are.
Are we making specific recommendations for cuts
Not,
tonight, or the fact that
you
making
you
them
know what you should do is, if there are any recommendations and it's a consensus of the board, you're not gonna be making any formal vote because this is a workshop.
Right.
But at least it can get me back to the drawing board to
let
rework
you
the
know
figures.
where we stand, we can
Exactly.
move forward and then take it.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
just-
it would be good if I could have a consensus of the whole council,
Right.
if that's the direction you want me to go.
And I know I communicated earlier in the week with you, and that was kind of the tone. I didn't really, using Mrs. Netto as the example here, is the fact is just because she's first under fire, I didn't want her to take the heat associated
Right.
with any of that. Right. Just-
Right, but yeah, if there's anything here that you want
Okay.
us to look at
Great.
and to change or to
Yep.
go back and work out, we can do. Now's the time to do it.
Okay.
Thank you for having me, and members of the town council, town manager, and Lisbon residents. Before you is a draft of the proposed library department budget. In the 100s, which is our personnel, it's a 2% increase for staff members, as well as a request to make the temporary 5 extra hours that one of my 15-hour library aide is currently working. It's being funded by the Friends of the Library this fiscal year. They issued 2 checks, and Ed deposited those in the appropriate account. We're asking that to become a permanent 20-hour position. The 5 hours extra that Victoria Shark works has made a tremendous difference in the number of children's programs that we've brought to the community. We do a midweek Tuesday afternoon science. Teachers have commented, a couple of teachers have sent through parents, boy, what's happened? My child is interested in science, wants to learn more. And the parent says, well, on Tuesdays we go to the library and they do a science program. It's fun, it's educational, they go home, they build things. And also the quality of the programs that she's helped us bring to the children. So we're asking for that to become a permanent 20-hour position. Also, in the personnel lines, we're requesting, again, the wonderful summer intern position that we've had for the last 3 years. The first year was funded by a grant. Second year, the Friends matched the council's pay for this. And again, the quality of the summer reading program that we can bring to the kids with that extra person is tremendous. We bring more kids in, they spend more time with us. We're excited about this summer. We are going to add an evening program to convenience those parents and families that can't come to us on a Tuesday afternoon. It also gives a local student, a high school or college student, an opportunity to learn skills that they can take to college. Perfect example is Hannah Stritch, who graduated from Lisbon High School last year, top of her class, was our library aide, is now at the Maine School of Art in Portland. With the work that she and the skills that she developed in the 7 hours, she is now, part of her education at this college is working in their library. She got the job because of the skills that she learned at her hometown public library, and we're very proud of that. So that position is very important to us. Also, in the 100s, we're asking to fund the snow shoveling duties that had been paid by the Friends for years and years and years. They hired a local team. The Friends, unfortunately, are not in a position to continue funding that little job. They want to focus what fundraising they can do with programs and building needs like the facade that we want to redo. We budgeted enough to get us through enough storms, we hope. That's an average here, and that takes care of the front entryway, the children's garden entryway, and the side of the building along the fire station. The plow can't get close enough, and that's where we're having problems with leakage. So we're into the building, so we're asking for funding that. And also, we've been asked to include in the personnel an additional 3 hours of my hourly paid staff to be open the Saturday evening for the Mary Main Street event in December 2016, so that we're presence on Main Street. So that's what you see. That's the difference in the personnel lines. Everything else is the same in the 100s. The professional development is the same, as well as the mileage that it stayed the same, and everything else was done through the town manager's office, all the other personnel stuff. In the contractual, that has all stayed the same as well, except for the 5256, which is the postage and delivery. The delivery being the interlibrary loan services that brings wonderful materials to our customers. This last month in February, which is a short month, we brought 81 items to the Lisbon residents. That's DVDs, audiobooks, books in series that people want to finish. You know, there's 17 in a set, and they want number 9 and 15, and we're able to get them for them. So we're asking for a third day of delivery. It's based on your population, and for us it's $600. So the budget has supported one for a number of years. The state graciously pays for one, and we're asking that this budget supports a third day. The difference that service makes is tremendous, not only for our customers, but it helps maintain the collection. We don't have to buy everything on bonsai trees or gardening and for tomatoes only or whatever. We're able to get it from another library and send it back to its home. And we're very proud to share with other libraries because we have a wonderful collection, and it's nice to be able to send stuff to Bangor, to Portland, and say, gee, the little library in Lisbon has this wonderful book on Lisbon, frankly, the Moxie book or something. So we're very proud of this service, and that's what this request is. Everything else in the those categories are the same, or came from the town manager's office, including the sewer bill and water use. In the, in the 5345, in the 5345 is repair and maintenance. We're asking for an additional $100 to help just the little things that come up with our building that are not in the other accounts. And an extra $100 that allows us to hire professional window washers to come in once a year and take care of those beautiful front windows that everybody likes to drive by or walk by and say, we can see your beautiful library. In the 5375, we're asking for an additional $300. That supports all that stuff that we need to move these services forward, including book covers and mending supplies. And that's a wonderful, and I've mentioned this at meetings before, Mrs. Medlin has the wonderful talent of mending books. Last fiscal year, we saved 82 books from the dump, a savings of close to $1,800. It gives them life, sometimes years of life, sometimes not, and it's a wonderful service. And again, but you need to buy the special tape. It's not just duct tape, and it's special, especially if it's pages. It's a non-yellowing tape, and so she does a wonderful job with that. So those types of materials keep going up. This budget also supports the janitor supplies. and that's very important to our building. And in this, part of this $300 extra request is $100 to supply or cover the refreshments and supplies that will allow us to be open and do a good job with the Mary Main Street event in December 2016. The last account for the library is 5380, which is operating supplies. We're asking for a 2% increase in that. We're anticipating increases in the price of books, especially children's books are going up all the time, but they're getting read. The kids are enthusiastic, so we'd love to be able to provide what they need to help them with their school studies. We experienced a 3% increase last fiscal year, and so that's pretty significant for us. The DVDs are very popular. Just today, it seemed busy today, and I just wanted to get a feeling and share this with you. When I left at 6:30, we had circulated over 60 DVDs today in our little library. So that's a busy day for us, and 129 people had come through the front door when I left at 6:30, and they still had a half hour to go. So people like the DVDs. We just got a new batch, so if you're into the new movies, we've got a bunch. Check them out on Facebook. We post them there, and people come in. They come sometimes rushing in. My child needs the latest Paw Patrol. Some of you with young children will know what that is. Others will know the Peanuts movie is in. That's going to be a popular one, and soon we'll have the Star Wars that comes out in 2 weeks. So be looking for that. Also, this supplies the magazines that we subscribe to, and we subscribe to 56 magazines. People enjoy those. It also buys the children's services supplies, all the wonderful things that make these crafts beautiful and the children proud to take them home. And it supports the summer reading program, all the things that, and we've begun to purchase for that. Bill has purchased, they will decorate their own kites and their own frisbees this year. And so those were purchased, and those are the kinds of things that the 5380 supports. And that's what the library has.
Any questions? Any questions?
I have several, but I just didn't want to monopolize.
No, go ahead.
Under the wages, Ms. Neto, a couple of clarification items. Am I understanding that the summer reading program is $18.90 additional plus the match from the Friends, or is it?
No, that's the total, but the
Total.
Friends are willing to go half if, the budget so chooses.
900, whatever.
Correct, would be
Okay.
the half the match. The 18 would be the full amount out of this budget, or the Friends would match the council's request at this point, yeah.
You would see the match on the revenue sides.
Correct.
We
Right.
budget the full amount, but
Correct.
it would be an
Exactly, the
offsetting
income comes
revenue.
the other avenue.
Yep.
Correct.
Right.
So 900 offset by the Friends.
Now, that person worked 7 hours a week for the, and there was one place that said 7 weeks and one that said 8, too. so-
Well, it's usually, if it's a college student, they sort of leave earlier, so we
Okay.
weren't sure. We
So-
budgeted, but sometimes if it's a high school student, when Robert was a high school student, he was able to stay because he was going back to Lisbon High, but Hannah was leaving, so, and if it's a 7-week, then the extra money just stays and it's put
Right,
back
and
into
it
the
was
funds.
not so much about that, it's just,
Yep.
it is the intention,
Yes,
it's a
right.
7-hour position,
Yeah,
5 days a week,
It's 30 hours a week.
30.
Correct.
Okay.
For a 7 or 8 week period of time, depending if it's a college student or a high school student.
Perfect.
But it's always a local student. We try to assist a local student family.
The next one is the $650 under the snow removal.
Correct.
Is that staff, or is that hiring somebody from the outside?
That'll be hiring somebody from the outside. It's not current staff.
So should that be a separate account, not a payroll account?
No,
Outside
it'll be,
services?
huh?
Should it be like an outside services account?
No, it'll be a paid position on payroll. It'll be an
Okay.
employee. It'll be like a temporary.
Okay, temporary employee through
Right.
the winter.
Yeah, it has to go
That's why I
through
was
the
wondering,
payroll.
why is it budgeted under the
Correct.
Yeah.
payroll piece? Okay, so it is somebody strictly for that function?
Yep.
Okay, I get that. I had a couple of the descriptions on the accounts. It seems that they're throwbacks from last year. The 5120 account says that it's less than last year, but it's actually the same amount, so it's just an old note.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And that's just, Mrs. Neto's narrative is very clear associated with that, so it's just trying to make it consistent with what she's presented. Same thing with 5121. That note about not attending the conference might be true, but it's an old note because it's the same amount over the last 3 years too. And the last piece that I had was having had the chance to actually visit with you and talk about the programming, specifically with the Interloan Library. I think it is in our best interest to support the third day associated with that because to your point on the last account with the increasing cost of books and whatnot, anything that we don't have to physically pay for is actually going to pay off more than trying to keep up with the cost of these materials that we physically own. So push comes to shove, I might not support the actual increase in the actual item, but definitely would support the interloan piece to be able to make it the best bang for the buck because you can get it from the other avenues. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Next.
Is police budget?
Diane, I want to thank everybody and welcome everybody. So,
Doing all three, right?
yeah. She also told Sean and I she was only going to take 5 minutes. She took 20, so Sean's short 15 minutes when it's his turn.
No,
Don't mind.
no pressure, Sean.
You done, David? I'll be,
Behind
Be
37
tomorrow.
more minutes.
Maybe tomorrow. Okay. I'll go line by line. That's pretty much how you'd like to get started here with explanation. Basically repeating what you have in front of you with the wording. I do want to reiterate what Diane said, that she uses, I think, said that this is a working document. I call it a moving target because we're constantly revising. And as a department head, all your department heads submitted their initial budgets a month ago. And then we had our meetings with the manager and the finance director over that period of time, and now we're at this level. So what I'm presenting tonight is already 30 days behind time and and is still in the revision stage, so you'll be seeing more changes as time goes on. The budget was also built on the department as it exists today. 13-person department with the same structure that we have at this time. So with that, you have the chief's wage. That's followed by the administrative assistant's wage. Then in the regular wage line, 5110, that is all of your full-time staff and some other part-time staff, being the part-time secretary. In the 5111 account, that's your overtime. At the time I did this budget, that was projected to be at nearly 29,000. I looked at the numbers today, and at 73% of the year, we're 78% expended, so that's started to come back down a little bit. It'll still be over, I predict, but it's a little more under control at this time. But again, that's going to be determined on sick leave and vacation, and I can give you when we do the budget, we can predict vacation. We can't predict carryover vacation, and we can't predict sick leave, so that's always a a shot in the dark, and we do the best we can with that. On the 5112 line, temporary, that's the reserves, and I have asked to at least bring that back up to 2 shifts a week throughout the year. That took a significant hit last year. 888 hours were cut out of that line, and that was one of the accounts that the personnel study, emphasized to maintain the reserves, because they are a significant part of the scheduling, and you don't have any benefits to deal with on that. They're just part-time reserves, so there's no health benefits and things like that cost us on that. You have your 5113 account, which is, I believe, standard across the line on the percentage that was used on that. In the police department, we have 2 unions this year that will both be up for negotiations. Matter of fact, one of those starts in 2 weeks, I believe. So we'll be moving forward on that. No prediction on how fast that's going to go, but we do have 2 units to negotiate with. Vacation sick leave replacement, pretty much spoke on that. That's year after year, that's best estimate we can give as time goes on. Court time, again, this is a particular line that some years it's good and some years it's not so good. This has been a good year, so that means next year it's due to be not a good year. So that just seems to be the cycle court time goes into. What we are noticing, though, because of the change in the unified court system, and we're hoping that this continues, that court time has been reduced with this change in the unified court system. What does impact us, though, is when they put half the department on call at any given time, and then they decide not to notify us after a full day that they weren't needed, so you're looking at 8 hours at time and a half while they were on call. That doesn't happen every day, but it does happen. It just happened a couple pay periods ago, and that's I blame it on defense attorneys. And anyway,
Is what it is, outside your control.
it is, and the holiday personal time, again, we know how many holidays we have. We budget for that. Some are at time and a half, some are at straight time, depending on if they're on duty or not on duty. Then they have their personal days, so we have to cover those shifts. And again, this number moves up and down as time goes on. Sometimes they put in for comp time. Eventually comp time comes back and bites us anyway, because at the staffing we have now, we most generally have to fill a shift when we have somebody out on for whatever reason. Years ago, in reality, when we had 16 people, comp time was not such an impact, because there were times you didn't have to fill that second or third shift that was on at that particular time.
Go back to training, skip training.
Oh, I'm sorry, skipped one? Yeah, that is time, just as it indicates, that's time that they spend on training, or that account is used when someone may be on duty and they've gone to training, let's say to the academy for a 1 or 2 day course, and their shift has to be filled, then that filling of their shift goes into the training line, because the cause of the overtime was training. So that's how that's identified there. We've been able to have a better handle on that over the years, because we contract with a company that allows us to go online to do all of our mandatory trainings now. Online training is less expensive, but you don't always get what you really need to get out of it when you're doing everything on a computer. But it is less expensive. That also was boosted this particular fiscal year because you will be having an officer attending the 18-week basic police academy. And that's a $2,500 fee for that officer to attend the academy. That's identified in there as well. He'll be going to the academy, scheduled to go in August. 2 academies a year, January or August. He's going in August. Moving back down to on-call, that is for the supervisor on-call weekend and the detectives on-call during the week. They get, by contract, they get a stipend for being on call. And that's what that line pays for. It's less than what the actual liability would be for that if they all put in for pay. Sometimes they put in for comp time on it, so over time we've been able to just bring that down a little bit so it's not at the true liability level if they always asked for pay. Mileage, I think that pretty much explains the purpose of that. Professional development, that's the account that pays for the training. No matter where the training is, that's what pays the registration fee or the seminar fee, whatever they want to call the fee. That's what pays for the training. That is the same line I have to use for meals at training. It's the same line I have to use if they're, say, in New Hampshire and it's a 2-night training, so they have to get a room. Same line. Everything comes out of that professional development line, all the cost. No one on the department put in for the educational incentive this year. They had a March 1st deadline. I can't remember the exact, I think it's March 1st. And no one submitted requests for that this coming fiscal year, so that's the reason for 0 in that particular line. The number 15, the school detail line, that is just what it says it is. That's the overtime for when we cover football, basketball, dances, whatever the school detail is. And that amount, I believe, is the same amount as you put into revenue because the school department actually pays that back. The remainder of your accounts, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all come out of the manager's office and HR. So hammer with questions on that one because I can't answer the questions on those lines.
The medical insurance is inflated because of the police officer's position that we've budgeted that we haven't filled. Yeah, so we've budgeted the family coverage, so that's why that's up there.
That additional budgeted position, we're paying to 14 officers for this year, is that right? No. 13 was, I heard you.
13 is with.
I heard you say 13
Well,
was
I built, when I submitted the budget, I built it on 13.
Right.
And then after that, Diane went to you and got guidance on the 14, so I think you've probably got the 14 numbers in here.
Okay, that's what I wanted to understand. 'Cause
But
I heard you say
on
that
the
in
summary,
first.
when that started, I built it on 13.
And that's good. I know, we're leaving off the line. I just wanted to make sure I had it right in my head, that's all. Thank you.
The account 5140, line 22, exactly what it says it is. It's uniforms and equipment for the staff. And I did perk that up because, again, you have one going to the academy, and the academy requires that they wear a special uniform while they're at the academy. And there's a cost to that. I don't have the full cost to it, but for that 18 weeks, they have to wear academy garb. And when some of us went to the academy paid for that, but times have changed. The state doesn't pay for it anymore. Everybody's responsible for their own. So. Uniform cleaning, that's, I think, slowly going away over time. Everything we have is wash and wear. but we still maintain this account if we have something, a blood issue or something that has to go in for special cleaning, we keep something in there like that. Excuse me, physicals is the town reimburses the employee for their copay on physicals. That's a contractual item as well. Physical fitness, that's a contractual item. The town pays, I'm going to say $250 a year, I think, is what the town will pay towards gym club membership or something like that. If they come in with a $400 bill, they get reimbursed $250. That's a contractual item as well. Recruitment testing, that line pays for the testing of your applicants. That pays for the psychological evaluation of your applicants. That pays for the polygraph examination. That pays for everything that's required of us when we hire a police officer. And everything comes out of that line. Just to give you a quick example, we can do a polygraph now at $250. The psychological is, I think, $5. It's just going up all the time. Advertising is exactly what that is. When we have an opening, we advertise the position. Cell phones, brought that down. This was one of the lines that came into the budget last year, and Diane separated all of these out to each department. In years past, we used to just have a telephone account, and it covered every department in town. And last year, she divided that out and put everybody's costs in their particular department. And watching that, we were, this is less than current, I believe, only because actually getting a better handle on usage. So I brought that down some. Postage, it is what it is. I don't know, unless, I don't know if anybody else has heard, I don't know if postal is going up this coming year plus, I have no idea.
I think it already did.
It already did, I missed it, so make sure you put some more money in there. I didn't know that. But no, I didn't know that. When did it go up?
I noticed our postal rate changes at work when we ship US Postal.
Really?
I don't think the stamps, but heavier packages.
Okay, well, anyway, that's what all that is. That's postage and shipping. Printing is, again, same thing. Whatever we have to have is printed specifically for the department. Rental of equipment, that's zeroed out. That's the old pager. We're going to get rid of the pager. Something to do about technology, so we don't need pager anymore in this department. Service and software agreement, that line is probably going to need a little adjusting. I don't know what your date is. I looked at it yesterday and I saw that line was taking a pretty tough hit. Again, years ago we didn't have to pay for analysis of specimens and whatever it may be that goes up to the crime, either DHHS or wherever. We have to pay for everything today, and it's always, you know, a couple $100 when you just send it up there anyway, and it's just driving the cost of doing business. So we have to maintain something there. We're probably going to have to look at that line and do a little tweak on that later on. Telephone, same explanation as the cell above. That used to be all under one account and divvied out. It's staying well in line this year. Line 34, gasoline. That's been cut back dramatically from current level. This budget was put in at $1.75 a gallon. I don't know by May, June, if that may want to be revisited, only because when this was done, again, things were looking really good, and now, since then, everything's going the other direction on us again. But again, this is one of those moving targets. You don't know where it's going to be. But I think last year, I don't remember, we used 250, 275, I can't remember now, but we took quite a,
This year, you're gonna be got ahead in the fuel line. Next year, you may not be if it's locked in at the
Right.
$1.75.
Right.
Supposed to drop again the end of June.
Right, right. It follows the demand, but
Yeah, I would imagine once summer gets here, we'll see.
repair and maintenance is, that's all equipment other than, oh, wait a minute, excuse me here. Yeah, repair and maintenance is just what it says it is. That's on all of our equipment other than vehicles, because we have a separate repair and maintenance vehicle account. The next line is a furnishings line. When we have chairs break or something like that breaks, that's what that line takes care of. The repair and maintenance vehicle, that's your 5365 line. They brought that down by $1,000 over what it currently is. Do they have the sheet? Okay, okay. That's 1,000 less than what we have this coming, what we have currently. I can say today, I don't know what they'll say next year, but I can say today that the utilities are panning out pretty darn good for us. They haven't required the maintenance that the VIX did over time, but I say that with an asterisk beside it because we're just now starting to get our early ones into the 60, 70,000 mile range, so we'll get a better handle on it once they start getting the higher mileage. But in the earlier time, we've been very fortunate with them. They've been doing very well. They also give us better gas mileage.
what kind
That's
of
helped
arrangement do
too.
you have on
The
the
VIX?
vehicles, Chief?
Better than the VIX. Oh, yes. I'm sorry?
What kind of arrangement, lease arrangement do you have on, what's the term? How long do you keep a vehicle?
We're keeping them 5 to 6 years. A couple of vehicles that Dave has, I think will go out 10 years.
Now the-
Basically, the ACO's vehicle will go out 7, 8 years. The K-9 unit,
We put the K-9 unit as a 6-year vehicle originally.
Based on wear and tear?
Well, yes, but also it was extended out further than your standard patrol unit because it's a single-use vehicle.
Doesn't get the additional, right.
Right. But what we're learning with these, and again, this is something that it's a learning experience with them, you may be able to get another year out of them over what we
Right.
did with the VIX.
Obviously, when the VIX went, you had to move to something, and the fact is, and Lewiston's having the issues with the charges with the brakes associated with that, so you've got a trade-off depending on which way you go. It's a whole,
Lewiston knew that was a problem before Lewiston bought them because Auburn had them.
yeah.
And
Well,
everybody knew Chargers.
They both
had
got them
brake
at the same
problems.
time, because it's a joint purchase.
Mhm.
But so yeah, it's point that I'm making. It's a learning curve, no matter where you go. When you're not dealing with something like the Crown Vic, where you had a history for an extended period of time.
Right.
that
And
was
again,
benefiting
that's
law
a
enforcement.
new vehicle, that Charger
Right.
package.
Right.
Same thing happened to the VIX. When the VIX came out in 98, I think, is when this series VIC came out in 98. They started with 14-inch rims. And they kept building them up, making the brakes bigger, because they had brake problems for a number of years early on. So, but again, the utilities have been treating us very well so far.
Great.
we'll see a higher trade-in value at the end, and I wouldn't be surprised if we can do as well, if not a little better at auction with those vehicles than on a trade-in, because they will be more of an in-demand type of vehicle than the Crown Vics.
Right. 'cause I mean,
All wheel
the
drive.
market for the Crown
That's it
Vic
right
was the
there.
taxi.
That's right.
That was it. The
That's
fact is, they weren't going to your average consumer. If there was anything left on them, they were going to a taxi service.
Line 38, that's office supplies. Pretty basic explanation there. Everything that, including now cups and knives and forks and whatever is used over there on top of regular office supplies. Operating supplies are more of your department patrol, CID, things like that they need for investigative supplies, et cetera, et cetera. That line's been doing well this year. Tires, I've maintained that amount over a number of years. It's done very well this year. Knock on wood, we had a pretty good winter, so didn't go through as much with tires. And equipment, that account is, there's no specific piece of equipment that's identified for purchase during that time. We keep an amount of money depending if something breaks and we have to replace it in the equipment side of the business. So that's what that amount would be used for. If things don't break or we don't need something, then usually something left there as well.
Before we move to the next division, can we just revisit, looking at Chief's recap over the year, the one item that actually stands off the page that we've heard about the most is overtime. I'd like to keep that, if we could, at the level of where we were budgeted last year, and make the accommodations in either the temporary wages or whatever that were cut to actually allow him to be able to sustain it. Kind of like the putting the 14th officer back on the street.
I got a question
Go
want
ahead.
on that 14th on. We have got an officer coming on full-time, Charlie. He's only been on, what, 2/3 with, 1/3 with you, 2/3 with the school.
75%, 25%.
Yeah,
How
okay.
about the SRO?
Yeah, and I want to see how that will work in with that, because he's going to be coming in, he can fill a position that wasn't,
Right.
not, what it's going to be, I'm looking for boots on the ground. He can have, with the SRO coming in, he'll have more boots on the ground.
Right.
And I want to talk about, it'd be maybe a place where we don't have to spend the money, if he can get more boots on the ground without spending the money, because he's already going to be here anyways.
Agreed. And that's looking at it from the same approach. I'm looking at it from the overtime, is because we
Yeah.
didn't have boots on the ground last year.
Right.
That line item went through the roof.
He's coming in, and it might be a savings of, where we don't, I don't want to get somebody out and go through the routine of sending out and getting him in and interviewing him in, and he's gonna do this, and then we find out that we can't really do it because we're paying completely, the SRO's coming us on board.
Right. Right,
So, basically, I just would like to look at that a little bit. I want the 14th one too, but I want to be able, when we decided on the 14th, we really weren't thinking about the SRO coming on.
Right. Agreed.
So-
And that's a shift associated when we heard the part from
Right.
the school's budget associated with that for their funding
Right.
accordingly.
So
I
we're
get
gonna
that.
have to bring one on, so we've got to kind of make room for him. you know.
Right. Well, not so much making the room, the fact is he's 100% yours instead of actually the split that we
Right.
had in the past, for
But
sure. So
we're
making that
we're
stop.
gonna have to put him on,
Agreed.
you know.
The other piece associated with that, Chief, you mentioned the 2 versus the 3 shifts associated with that for the temporary. I would love to see holding the line at where we were at on the overtime for last year and making that accommodation to actually give you back that line. If I was to pick one line item that I would have the most heartburn with what was cut last year, that temporary line item, because as you said, there are no benefits associated with that and it cost you in the overtime where we didn't have
If
it.
you wanna give it back to them, I have no problem with
No,
that.
I just,
Yeah.
in discussion,
I have
is
no
the fact
problem,
is,
yeah.
let's do the trade-off. The
Yeah.
fact is, let's make the accommodation on the temporary line and hold the line at the overtime piece.
Okay, that temporary line, what I put back, what I'm asking in this budget that I put back, still doesn't bring it back to the level that was at before
And
it was cut.
that's what I'm saying. And the fact is, I would even go advocate the one extra shift associated with that to accommodate, to be able to make it where it was before.
Geez, I happen to think I put that number in there, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
I
I
thought-
read your note. I read your note.
Yeah, but, yeah, you're talking about the 3 shifts a week, year-round?
Right. I would be entertaining to see where that settles, knowing that, okay, what we're saying here is we're not interested in bringing up the overtime line, but what's it do by accommodating it through the temporary?
And you're correct, too, and I brought it out, we're filling more shifts when you have the ability to have more manpower available. When you have more man-hours available, that does give you the ability to have less overtime. But then you have to somehow bring that all together so it works. What did impact us hard this year is that we went quite a while without filling because we were in limbo. We didn't know what was gonna be happening.
Right.
And when we did finally hire, which was at the halfway point in the year, that officer has now finished his field training, and which was nearly 3 months, so went quite a while without a patrol position.
Right. And all of that, everything associated with the position, that overtime in your department took the hit associated with it, trying to make the coverage, to simplify all the moving parts that you've had to.
Well, don't confuse the vacation sick leave with the overtime line.
I'm not,
Okay.
just literally
Because
staffing
overtime
the average. Right.
overtime is mostly reactive to any given situation
Right.
that comes up. Your vacation sick leave is more of a scheduling
Okay,
piece.
with the temporary,
And some of this overtime, you see here, gets reimbursed to us.
right,
MDEA reimburses some overtime, but that has to come out of this account. Some of our alcohol enforcement comes out of this overtime account, and that gets reimbursed to us as well. So, I think just in the alcohol enforcement, you've got, I'm gonna say $2,500 or thereabouts that's been reimbursed to us this year, just on the alcohol enforcement. So, yeah, sometimes that overtime line, and this is the educational process, that overtime line looks, but in the other side, on the revenue, it's coming in different pieces. Doesn't come all back,
right.
doesn't all come back, but
That's a good point.
some of it does come back.
So what I'm hearing is you want us to restore that amount or back it back to the fiscal year 17-16 level for the overtime and then restore that additional shift to the temporary? Is that what the consensus is? Is that what you want?
That's what I expressed,
Yeah,
whether it's a
yeah.
consensus or
Fine
not,
with me.
that's what I expressed.
Because we'll revise those figures if that's a consensus of everybody.
Okay?
I think I'm in favor of this, yeah.
The next one I didn't understand, there's a 12.6 line item for union negotiations. Is that legal fees? What kind of things hit
That's a
that?
placeholder for union negotiations.
So anything that goes to arbitration, any of those fees that we incur?
And any type of negotiations in the contract.
Okay, okay.
Keep looking, I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Chief, this is for you. I just want to understand a little bit better. 35 and 41. They seem to be the same to me, but tell me how they're not.
Okay, repair and maintenance equipment is not anything to do with vehicles,
Yeah,
all right? Repair and maintenance equipment could be radar brakes, radio brakes, portable brakes, something that has to be repaired or recertified, all like radars annually, comes out of repair and maintenance equipment.
okay.
41. That is if that radar that broke can't be fixed, if we buy another radar would come out of that.
Okay, so this
That's an
maintains, that
example.
replaces.
Right.
Okay.
This is a purchase, the equipment, the 2,500 would be a purchase.
Okay.
I buy flashlights out, brake flashlights. I buy flashlights out of that, things that break, we use with that line there.
Okay.
If we can fix it, it comes out of the other line.
Perfect. I just wanted to understand a little bit better. Thank you.
Department cell phones does the police department have? I'm looking at the list that you gave us earlier in the week, Diane, I know of two, and it's no way that it's $700-800. So I'm just looking for the number there.
How many, I'm sorry, I wasn't picking up on the question.
How many cell phones do you have in the department, chief? Is it every officer, also 14?
No. The detectives, myself, myself and the detectives.
And, what's that?
Well, no,
Well, you do,
there will be, there's another one in there, the other, two detectives and myself.
so this, the list I gave you is minus one detective.
Yeah. If you'd asked me last year, it would have been Bernie.
You gave me gave us the price per
Oh,
monthly?
cell phones also is the air cards in our MDTs.
Thank you. I knew we were missing something here.
Right.
That's $45 a month.
Oh, yeah.
almost.
All of our air
Those are
cards
Yeah.
in the MDTs come out of this line.
Thank you. That was, there was no way with just the
Well,
two.
yeah, when you
gave
said
me.
that, I had the number and I'm going 3 and I'm like, that's not right either, so, yeah.
And how many air cards is that?
Oh, goodness, that's MDT in every cruiser. So
I've
you've
got
got,
that breakdown.
you've got 6,
I did it last year, so
Yeah,
I've
if you
got a
could-
rough
you
figure for
Add that to the cell phone thing just for
Yeah.
an FYI, just,
I'll do that.
thank you.
The 5346, the office equipment, how often are you replacing furnitures and fixtures? 'Cause I noticed last year there was 600 in that account. Have you catched anything in that one?
I'm sorry,
There was
how often?
Yeah, there was $600 in the account last year.
Mm-hmm.
How often are you using that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I don't even know if, I'm showing, we've used, $65.79 this year. I don't have last year's expense list,
Yeah, we do.
so you're ahead of me.
Which one is it they're looking at, last 5?
No,
Number 5346, equipment repair, office equipment, $600.
Nothing, nothing was spent last year.
Right.
Or,
Cause you got-
I don't have that.
Oh, you got the
I know,
wrong-
I've
no,
got the
that's
wrong
this
one.
year.
This
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
I sent it in an email, I didn't bring it.
Yeah,
well, last year,
I got
first
it.
of all, if you're looking at numbers, last year it wasn't called office equipment. Last year, the previous year, it was called, it was furniture.
Furniture and fixtures, yeah, 5415.
Yeah, see, I don't even have 5415 on this print, because it was a previous year print. But it used to be furniture.
5410.
We didn't have it last year. That's your problem.
Okay.
Thank you. That was it for that one.
ACO? ACO?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I know it just says police on the agenda, but I didn't know if you might want to.
Well,
This one is pretty straightforward. I put my tabs in the right ones. Oh, Oh, I put 2 communications budgets in here. John must have done this for me.
I said or it won't, either way.
Oh, no, was that what he said? I was
Could
in the
go either way.
warm-up.
He's the optimist in the crew.
Yeah, I can,
I guess it doesn't help that it's winter. It's coughing.
all set? The,
No.
we have, no?
Wait, you got the same thing?
Glad I'm not the only one.
Police one is the next, animal
It was the
control.
one right after, I went digging for it too, and then I realized it was the next one. I did the same thing, bud.
ACO, no, it's animal control.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, animal control.
You did the same thing. I was looking for ACO. I was like, what the hell? Oh, the one right after police. I got you.
Okay, this account is, this is a one-person department, operates through the, our agency, but, has a separate budget. That's our humane officer, Jeff Cooper. This is, a budget that, or a service that we also contract with, Sabatis and Bowden on. So you'll get a revenue on that from Sabatis and Bowden. The current revenue is at, for this fiscal year, that's 28,200 and change from Sabatis and Bowden combined. The wage, this is a non-union position, so the wage is as stated on there. The overtime has been overtime this year is at is $49.70, so that's just the percentage increase from the wage based on that overtime line. Professional development, same thing, pays for courses when he has to take either a research or gets an update on particular courses. Matter of fact, he's heading to Bangor and I'm going to say a couple of weeks. I don't remember the exact date now. He's going up there for a animal control seminar. Then your accounts 4 through 9 are benefit pieces. Uniforms, I use the same annual rate there for his position as I do for the full-time officers. This has been a good uniform year, so that's a good thing. But I still maintain that same amount of money. He does have a cell phone, and he also, there is an air card included in that as well. The software piece for his licensing. Your shelter fees, $52.73. That's your one-time annual payment to the shelter down in Brunswick, Coastal Humane. Veterinary services, what that is if he has an injured animal and has to take it either to Lewiston Animal or the emergency vet, that's where that line comes, takes care of. Coastal Humane, we have noticed, and it's been very helpful, that they also have a vet in-house, so if they're open and it happens during the daytime, he can take it down there. But if it's a nighttime piece, it has to go up to the emergency hospital in Lewiston. Gasoline, same as before. We did budget a month ago at $1.75, so we'll discuss that at a later date. That's another moving target there. Repair and maintenance equipment. Now, this is where the animal control budget does not have separate repair and maintenance lines. Never has. It's always just been bundled into one account if it's either equipment or the vehicle. Goes into that account. Initially, when this budget was presented to Diane and Ed, this line was, I think, $3,000 more than what you're seeing tonight. With the purchase of that new truck, we're pretty confident we can reduce that down to the usable amount, like as $500. Operating supplies, again, that's what he needs, be it skunk spray or something spray or any spray. He's got more sprays than, anyway, stuff for animal control. Tires, that's basically, that's $650, that's one set of tires a year. That's all that is, one set of tires a year. And equipment, same thing as the previous budget. If something breaks, be it a pole rope or whatever, we replace it and it comes out of that line. Sabatis is 28% of this budget. I think that's the number, 28% we're using, right? Yeah. And and to figure that out, that 28% does not include our shelter fee because that's Lisbon's contract. Doesn't include that. We don't charge Sabatis for that because they have to maintain their own contract with another shelter. That's your animal control budget.
I got nothing. He answered my questions.
Does Bowden have to pay any?
Bowden, yep, this particular year, we're getting $7,600 from Bowden. $76.44 and 8 cents.
And that's just for the
Animal control
Services.
No, I'm talking about for coastal.
Oh, Bowden has to maintain their own contract with
Okay.
Coastal. They're not part of our contract. Bowden and Lisbon contract with Coastal, and Sabatis contracts with Andrews-Dogger and Lewiston. So
I gotta ask it because you brought it up. Wasn't much a big difference between Coastal and?
Coastal gave us a better deal.
Better deal, okay, I just wanted to ask. I
Coastal
figured-
not only gave us a better deal, they actually provide more service to us with that.
More bang for the buck,
that veterinarian being on staff.
It's really good over there.
They are, I wanted to say.
Matter of fact, when
They
we
know much
interviewed,
about Lewiston.
when we interviewed Lewiston that day, he actually looked right at us and said, "I don't know why you're even talking to me," and we both like,
Wow.
what's that all about? But he did, that's what he said.
No more questions? Okay, chief.
Okay. All right, communications.
I don't care.
We wanted to bundle them, right? Okay. That's what I thought.
Want to come back, did you?
Well, no, All right, communications. This is for your comm center. Currently, this is for our public safety agencies and also those for Sabatis and Durham. And this, we think Durham's selectmen it's on their agenda tonight to hopefully renew their 3-year contract with us. We'll find out later this evening or tomorrow morning, I guess. Excuse me. Wages, that's came down just a tad from last year, only because of personnel changes within that department, going from a senior position to compensate down to an entry type position, so you save some money there. On the 511 overtime account, that is going to be changed, and when I brought it up with Diane, I made it clear that this was a very heavy piece of work in progress, because what we have, because of the 40-hour weeks, how many hours are in a week, you always have that 8-hour shift that is open. Historically, we have filled that 8-hour shift with reserve dispatch. As time has been going on and everything's changing in the world, this this year, we were contemplating the idea of filling that 8-hour shift with a full-time dispatcher, but that would be at overtime. Again, this budget was done over 30 days ago. We were still in the discussion stage on that in-house. We're planning right now to keep it as it is today. So this number will be coming back down to more in line what you see for current. And that's the direction we're headed. That's the direction we're headed. That's a work in progress, and we also have to work with our reserves on that as well. So that 16,000 will be coming down to more in line with what is current. And I gave that whole explanation on the wrong line. It was bear with me a minute here. I'm okay. I'm in the right line. I'm looking at temporary now because I just got done talking about reserves. We maintain a 40-hour-a-week reserve schedule. What you see is the 32. So you're going to be seeing this reserve line being readjusted to get back in line to make it 40 again. We're flipping right. We're going to take out overtime and put back some reserve time to get it back to 40 hours. We have to have the hours. You can't cut the hours. So the hours are either going to be compensated at overtime or reserve. So we're going to put them back in the reserve line. So that's going to be a fix as well, which will put it back to more in line to what you currently have again. Again, the full-time reserves are in the same unit as your patrol detectives and SROs. That's the same unit, so they're in negotiations. Vacation, sick leave. I showed you what the full liability would be, and then I did I projected it out, and basically what you see there is a happy medium, because I don't know what next year is going to bring. I say that, let's see where it is right now. Yeah, that's just to throw you a number. Currently, as of today, that line is budgeted at 14.4, and we've expended 69, so not even half of it. So it's getting better. And like I said, these are moving targets, so that'll be another line to look at. Training for the dispatchers. We'll be using more than that than we have this past year, because we have newer personnel coming on board that are going to be requiring training to catch up and be where they have to be in order what's required. Holiday personal time. Again, there's a projection on there for year end. We still have 2 holidays to go, so that line was budgeted at $16,350, and you have $3,500 left in it for 2 more holidays, so might be a tight squeeze. Mileage, again, this is when they go to the training, things like that. Professional development, that's what pays for your training and so forth. And then lines 10 through 14 are your employee benefits. $41.50 is uniforms for the full-time staff per union contract. Maybe something we bring up under negotiations. The next line, physical fitness, is same thing. That's under union contract. There's the 250, because I knew the number was 250. That's the maximum allowed if somebody puts in for it. Your recruitment testing, we've got 500 in there, but when you have an opening, it's costs more than that. But again, to put a number in there is at least putting 500 in there is a help, but it usually costs more than that. That's usually almost just the ad now. The advertising is nuts. Telephone, that's your 911 loop. That's a set fee from the state. Repair and maintenance equipment, that's all equipment in the comm center. Be it a light standard or a computer or radio switch or whatever it may be, it's all equipment in the comm center. And the office supplies, same thing. Comm center related office supplies.
As far as I want to go tonight is the question, do you currently have one dispatcher that's vacant? Is that what I read in the note?
We have one full-time vacancy right now, yes.
You're looking to hire at least one already at this point?
Right, right.
That's just to get
Applications
back to
closed.
it.
Applications closed yesterday, Monday. Yeah, yesterday.
And that's just to get back to our basic needs to cover 24/7, 7 days a week.
Right, I brought in a reserve. I have a reserve that was formerly full-time with us. He's got all his certs and he's maintains everything. He's been elevated back to filling until we get the position filled.
Anything else I'd have on the topic? I'd be more interested when we talk about the revenue stream, so hopefully recent events actually shake out and we know more on that topic. Is that a politically correct way to say?
I just want to ask. Yeah, I don't see it, so maybe this is probably something
Right.
we'll hit when we talk about revenue stream. But I know that part of the, when we were talking about contracts, was the fact that the IT piece of this was handled by one person solely here, and that drove overtime, which then drove the cost of us doing business and what we had to put out there to our partners. How is that factored into this budget?
That one position is 50-50 with the police and comm.
Okay.
So half of that salary and benefits, everything associated with the position, 50% of it's in the police budget.
Yep.
And the other 50% is in your communications budget. The overtime in communications is, if you're talking about IT,
Yeah.
again, the IT overtime would be assigned by what the cause for the overtime is.
Right.
If we lose one of the municipalities that we're providing service for, that will lessen some of your overtime in IT areas. But then we still have IT issues all around the map.
That's
the organization.
Exactly. Yeah, it hits kind of the nail on the head there, understanding that. What I'm looking at long-term is maybe talking about farming out the IT. And we don't have to do that tonight, talk about that tonight, but seeing, at least comparing the cost of that to what we're doing.
And IT with us is, it's not just information technology. IT with us is your cruiser video systems, your anything that's out there, your MDTs. And talk oxalize, anything
So
over and
specific
above in
stuff
our
that,
business.
that particular person has the intimate knowledge of,
Mhm.
then maybe that's something we don't necessarily look at farming out because of the
Specialty.
specialized nature of that and what he
Security.
has the experience.
Security
I
as
mean,
well
security
too,
piece as
Norm,
well.
because in
I'm
that regard, you
talking
don't
more
want.
along the lines of the other stuff, if we're talking about, maintaining servers, maintaining equipment, desktop equipment, stuff like that. Stuff that could be easily, maybe we might realize a cost savings, and I don't know that we will, I think it's just worth investigating, if that makes sense. And maybe you have before, and you can say, Norm, I kind of barked up that tree and didn't see anything there, so.
I didn't realize it was just not network stuff, Chief, because in that regard, knowing that you're talking about crawling around in people's cruisers in your software for other, I know in my experience, again, through Lewis, they're real sensitive who's actually working in that apparatus for those reasons, because there's a protocol our IT staff to even get on their network had to fill out with
Yeah, they have to
Homeland
be,
Security.
CJIS certified criminal.
Yeah, exactly, and that's not just us, that's anything dealing with federal or FBI, they had to go through the whole screen.
We do the same, we require SimQuest before they send somebody over there.
Right.
That person has to go through certification.
You know,
And SimQuest is on board with that. They've got a couple of people that they've done that with.
so anything that our sergeant could actually do that, not having to go through that process, it would be cheaper to have that part in-house, just to bring that on record.
I don't think you could even contract out
Yeah.
costs.
I know the number of cruisers associated with that is 3 times or whatever it is for the 2 communities, but they retracted from just who was actually doing the setup on the laptops in the cars. And the fact is, right now, it's being done by the 911 comm center staff just for that reason, because the security nature associated with what they can actually see is not a need to know.
I've been listening to this comment for 6 years now, that's why I haven't said anything.
You knew the answer.
We've been down this road before.
Yes. But I'm glad you answered the question,
5116 and 5121. Last year, you only used $167.86 out of 5116 and $162.50 out of 5121. What happens with
We
that?
get them to do as much online as they can,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's not available, but we maintain an amount in there for whatever else becomes available.
So what happens with that leftover amount come the following budget season?
That's a town manager, finance director answer.
Lapses into fund balance.
Closes to the undesignated fund balance. Part
Okay.
of that figure we saw. That was simplified view, that's part of the $1.2 million we added this year.
So the 5116, though, you were just saying that there's some individuals that are going to be using, that's the training, the 3,500. You have some individuals
okay,
who have to take some training to get up to their expectation. Were they not able to do it this year because the programs weren't available?
We do it when the academy has the scheduling available.
Okay.
And we're hoping that something comes up this fiscal year. If not, it'll be next fiscal year.
Okay. So, and then once that happens, they'll all be where they need to be?
They'll be what?
They'll be at the expectation that they need to be at?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's the new hire.
Okay.
The new hire may have the certification. We don't know yet.
Is everybody else, as far as in the department?
Everybody, all the full-timers right now have the standard of training that they're supposed to have
Okay.
for the job that they do.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, you're up.
He's on schedule, leave him alone.
Wow. Good fall asleep over there, but don't keep him on the toes. Haven't you snuck up on him in the office?
No, I haven't had that pleasure.
I don't sleep in my office. I'm Thank you for coming. I'm Fire Chief Sean Galpo, and I'm here to explain the fire department budget for fiscal 2017. So, line by line, feel free to ask anything. I did see two things that I noticed, and it may have been corrected already, but it may not have. The summary for line 13 is actually the summary for line 14, and there isn't one for 13 there, so that's, I don't know if Jody had caught that or not. Postage cost for the fire department should actually be there. And I used, for gas, we had talked about 185 per gallon, so if we're at 175 per gallon, there's a $79 difference in what my total gas would be. But minor, but just letting you guys know that before we get there. So account 5101, director manager wages, I'd like to start out by saying that this is a 2.1% increase for a total amount of $9,170 in my $440,000 budget. So if you can keep that in mind as we move along, then so my wages are there. Line 2 basically are the wages for the department. That's including all officer positions, firefighters, sub-firefighters, and the per diems. That's 32 hours a week at $15.92 for our per diem firefighters.
One more time on that? That was my question. Just how do we actually pay our volunteers, if you will?
We pay them a stipend.
Okay.
Okay. Except for the per diem firefighters. We hire guys during the day, 32 hours a week. Okay. We try to have driver operators, engineers in the fire stations so that if there's a call, we know we have a driver. We're able to get the apparatus out there. So that's a different, the $15.92 is an hourly for that per diem wage. And then everybody else is a stipend.
How many per diem are there?
There's 32 hours. I have like 5 to 10 guys that can do per diem. Okay. I don't have any dedicated hired, for 20 hours a week type individuals. They rotate through there.
What 32-hour block are we talking? Is that Monday to Friday?
Monday to Friday. Once in a while, if somebody really wants to be able to do a Saturday time and we have the hours available, we'll let them do that.
Where do you shrink? It's not an 8-hour day, obviously. So what core hours?
It's usually an 8-hour day.
Monday to Friday is 5 days, but 40 hours. So
We don't fill every day.
Okay.
We only have
So it's just
32 hours.
Is where you come. Okay.
Right.
That's what I was. The Monday holidays and all the other foolish stuff.
Right. It depends on
the average.
Right. There's a calendar up for each station. They say, hey, I'll do per diem that day, and the days are. So we try not to have. Sometimes we do have 2 people on, and those are the days that are a typical heavier workload where they're either servicing the extrication equipment. If you saw Lisbon Falls today, they were working on the extrication equipment, moving some stuff around and that type of stuff. So having 2 people there that day is beneficial. So.
Beautiful. And stipend amount is?
For each individual?
Yep.
Do they have that? They don't have.
Is it a flat amount? Just
Typically, we pay per point, which is a pay per call now.
okay.
But we have, every position is a stipend amount.
Okay.
So deputy chiefs are around 2 deputy chiefs at $8,320. I have the whole breakdown that I could get to you.
Just an FYI. I try to get an idea on the hierarchy associated with that, and then I knew
Typically,
something about the paper.
yeah, typically our officers are stipend more because they have a collateral duty. So,
Right.
so they're, what we do is if you have everybody's firefighter, fire 1 or 2. So firefighter 1 or 2, if you're EMS qualified, because we're doing EMS now, there's a stipend that goes in there for that, a
Yeah.
base amount.
Yeah.
And then the officers all get from lieutenant. If you're an engineer and you work on trucks, then you get a small stipend. Lieutenants, captains, and deputies all get a stipend for their collateral duty and their duty officer weekend. That covers their duty officer
Right.
weekend type stuff. Now, what we do that is we pool all of that money into quarterly, and we take, as everybody responds, it's their total points. Everybody gets a point per hour as they show up, and then they're paid whatever that point amount ends up being is we divide into the total amount. Total points divided into the total amount is your point value, and then for
Pay out
people that,
accordingly.
yeah, and pay out accordingly. And what that does is that we've gone years for paying people the $1,500 a year, and they're doing the bare minimum. In a volunteer base, sometimes you have the Fab Five, I call them, that are doing everything at the fire station. They try not to, but they kind of get a little bit of a, this guy's only showing up for the bare minimum. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing, but he's getting paid that amount for, doing that bare minimum. Any time that somebody can give, by all means, we're thankful for. I mean, that's because this is a true volunteer base. They're getting stipend for it. But what this does is that lets that guy who's showing up and doing everything get paid for it.
Right.
He's doing what he needs to do to, so.
No, that was kind of where I was going with it, because everything that I'm reading locally is it's not getting any easier to staff a volunteer fire department.
It's getting harder.
When my house is on fire and I need it, I want to make sure that there's somebody there, so that their job, we're supported, associated with that.
That's volunteerism in general, all across the board and
Right.
everything. If anybody's in scouts or anything else, I'm sure their volunteerism is low. Anybody who's in softball, baseball in town, LJAL, right? Volunteerism is down there too. And I thought you guys were going to be tired. I guess David went too long. I'm the one that's. And I'm still not I'm still not at full manning. I'm at like 41, 42 right now. We have space for 48.
Okay.
So, trying to get, that's why you've seen some of the signs are still up in the falls for hiring. That's always, but, a lot of training requirement for us, but that protects both us, the town, and the individuals. So we require a lot of training, which is a big, stepping up and giving a lot of time in the beginning. But once they have that, it's pretty much just calls, trainings, meetings, and that type of stuff. So those wages, anybody else on wages?
Thank you for the tangent.
Sure. 5120, mileage is $700 as the account provides travel expenses for any of the listed employees if they're going to training or if they need to travel. Typically, that's for like National Fire Academy. We rent a van to go to Emmitsburg if they end up going there. Professional development is also 5121, is $10,000 for all the training classes that they actually have to take and move forward on. 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9 are all come out of the town manager's office as far as retirement, workman's comp, and FICA, and all that. 8 doesn't. 8 is diesel. That's based on our use at the $1.88 per gallon. Gas, as I stated, I figured at $1.85, but I don't know if we were doing $1.75 or not. But like I said, that's a 13. If it's at $1.75, that would be $1,380. It'd be a $79 difference. 20, account 5345 is repair and maintenance of equipment.
There you go.
I
Only
skipped
10.
a page.
Only 10, sir.
Hold on.
Well
Okay.
played, well played, very well played.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and we'll move on
I'll
from
get through
here.
this
Okay,
quick.
so I was right. 7, 8, and 9 are all out of her office.
Now, who's
All right.
hired?
10, account 5140, uniform and safety, that's for me. In 15 years, that's gone up $50. So it's kept it the same, basically. Uniform cleaning at 5141, that maintains we do supply Class A uniforms for the entire membership, and that's for parades, funerals, any type, that type of stuff. That's used as they get firefighter 1, then they're fitted for the uniform, and that takes care of all that, along with cleaning if it needs to be done. 5150, physicals, that account is a baseline physical expense for employees. Also includes yearly mandated requirements for main respiratory pre-employment physicals at approximately $800, for a new member. And the yearly mandatory respiratory questionnaire funds, there's another question, runs from $100 to $155. That's mandatory by OSHA. So we do a pretty in-depth pre-employment physical and blood testing and everything else, only for that fact that people who have been in the job for a long time die from some really weird stuff. So we get a baseline on your leads and all that type stuff in your blood, so that later on down the line, if we find that we can document that you were in a fire on this date, the day the mill burned or something, that, and there's 5 of you that are all coming up with the same type of thing, then maybe we'll be able to help people out by then, so. 5211 cell phones is the cell phones for the department, and that one is not the postage cost for the fire department. That would be 5256.
I'm assuming that's air cards too?
Correct. Sewer, I don't have nothing to do with that. So telephone is those costs, and water department are all fixed costs. And now we're on page 3 correctly. Diesel, as I stated, was based on use, so was gas. Repair and maintenance, 5345, repair and maintenance of equipment, provides a cost associated with the pump testing, ladder testing, SCBA required testing and apparatus maintenance, repairs to the, to pagers, two-way communication radios, all that type stuff. Office supplies, pretty self-explanatory. Operating supplies is more of that day-to-day useful stuff. Gloves, right? We go through gloves. We go through Nomex hoods, boots, that type stuff if we need to actually. Boots are initially set up in that 5410 line where we have, but any, upkeep of boots from other people. Guys do wear out boots, that type of stuff. Helmets. And then parts are just that, provide supply, repair parts for any of the fire department, apparatus and equipment. The 5410 line for 32.4 this year, that was when, last month when I talked to you guys about, and you asked me about if I had anything big coming up in the budget, I was able to actually get the SCBA compressor replaced within that line. We're setting really well on equipment right now, so we were able to say, you know what, buying that one big ticket item out of the budget instead of maintaining those hand tools and everything else, that we're able to do that this year. It did also reduce our personal protective equipment because we're like on year 7 of that program. Everybody's in a pretty good set of PPE right now. That reduced us down to 4 sets for this year, and that only came in at $8,400. And then the self-contained breathing apparatus compressor at a cost of $24,000. So we were able to absorb that into the budget, which worked out well, I believe. And that's the basic fire department budget, and then the capital reserve. Of course, I'm asking for the $75,000 for the capital reserve truck replacement program approved by the selectmen and the board in 2004 for apparatus replacement and refurbishment. That's the last page, right? Okay.
Any questions?
Who do the cell phones cover?
That breakdown is me, the air cards. We have 3 air cards, and I don't know if we still
I'll get you
have
the breakdown.
We used to have 2 trucks had cell phones, but everybody started carrying cell phones, so we were at the point where I believe we got rid of those. So they're not
I think it's just yours. and
just
air
mine
cards.
and air cards.
And I'll get you last year's breakdown.
The only thing that came off the page for me was the equipment. We talked about it last month, and I completely support it.
I completely support the $75,000 for capital reserve.
Sitting right where they need to be. But awesome.
Now, is the 75,000, is that something that's been in every budget, or has that been cut?
That's been cut.
It's been cut.
This is,
That's what I thought.
Supporting this year.
Yes.
Putting it back in. What was the original amount that was set? Just a curiosity question.
When we first started that program, it was progressive. I had it actually set up that it started at 50 or 55 for like 7 years, and then it jumped up to, I think, the 75, which is a pretty drastic increase. 25 grand is a drastic increase. But it put us, and 75 originally was right, it was gonna be for almost like 10 years, I believe. It was gonna set us up for 10 years, but we drastically undercut the first like 5 years by like 25 grand a year, you know. And then we had to, even by doing that, we bought Rescue 10. The old truck that we had ended up basically not being able to take a sticker and everything else. It just fell apart on us. We were still able to supplementally fund that purchase out of that account. So we still protected the town somewhat by still being able to get that. And we've reforecasted Rescue 10. I did that today.
So since 2004, how much has been put into that reserve account versus what should have been, according to what?
That I'd have to report back to you on, and get the exact numbers of them actually giving us. We'd have to research that every year. The goal with that was, like, at any time when it was established, was that plan was gonna fall into the total town plan and be able to do, you know,
It's just like anything else. I mean, in that regard, you take this same model and you apply it to the PW department. They wish they had seed money to actually offset, and the fact is their pieces of equipment, because it does protect the townsfolk from actually having to come up with those expenditures in the key budget years when you have to replace those items.
We've done something that isn't exactly the greatest political thing to do when it comes to the fire department and buying apparatus, and we've done it twice, not in my tenure, but we've done it once in my tenure, and we bought 2 trucks at a time, you know, and that's a big impact. The last time we did that in 2003, it was $1.3 million. You know, when we replace the ladder truck, or whoever the chief is who replaces the ladder truck when that comes up, that truck itself may be $1 million. You know, just the way inflation goes and everything else, so.
That's gonna be a tough pill to swallow.
And that's, yeah, and that's.
Well, it isn't gonna be if you have.
Is it gonna be funded by 75,000?
If we have the money
Over
over
time.
time, right.
It's smart. You're not having it happen all at once.
I guess
You're just building up slowly, so even if
If
the
it
expense is
had been.
greater than
No, I know.
And
what
we
the
works good for
reserve
repairs
is.
too, so we can keep the trucks going.
Right.
Didn't we didn't we use
Yeah.
money to refurb those trucks
Refurb is
recently?
half of our battle there. Right now, we're building trucks out of the right materials, so they're not rusting out from underneath us as bad as they used to. And refurbing them at their half-life is the standard. If you can do that, you're gonna get a full 25 years out of your truck, 20 to 25 years out of your truck, depending on how.
If you don't, you're foolish.
Well, and that money comes directly out of these reserves, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so,
Right.
it's smart.
That's why I was able to come to you and say, look, engine 1 and truck 6 are ready to be refurbed. You know, it's not a tax issue, the money's already there, it's been.
Very nice.
All set? Guess it's time to adjourn.
Thank you.
Yes, I didn't say we were gonna have.
Don't we get to ask questions at the end?
Yes, Larry, I'll let you ask a few questions.
I have 2.
Okay.
What is the difference between training and professional development?
Anyone wanna answer it?
I mean, is one mess kit repair 101 that has nothing to do with their job? Or
I don't know what the
is it
difference is.
professional
I know there's a
development?
difference, but I don't know what it is, Larry.
I mean, you understand my question
Yeah.
and concern? That's the first question.
Professional development is the funds that are used to pay for the cost of the training, be it whatever the school is, whatever the course is, whatever the specific training is, the cost for that training is paid out of professional development. Also out of professional development, as I explained earlier, if they have to go and it's a multi-day course and they have to get a hotel room, that comes under professional development. They have to eat while they're at the training, that comes out of my professional development. I don't have the sublines for that. So any cost associated with the course comes out of professional development. What comes out of training is the pay that you have to give either for the person being trained, if they're off duty and they're being trained, or if they're on on duty and their shift has to be filled, the overtime that is used to fill that shift comes out of the training line. Any cost associated with the training that is a paycheck cost comes out of training.
Okay, thank you. Second question. Training, professional development for only the police department. Why aren't we using forfeiture funds? That's $20,000 you could save in your budget.
Because training is a line item in your budget, and I've said it once, I've said it 100 times, you cannot supplant. And to eliminate your training budget when you've had a training budget for decades, and starting to use forfeiture to pay for training would be supplanting. That's illegal.
Okay, Larry?
Right now, you see the revenue as a separate income stream anyway, so it's actually cushioning the budget,
Thank you, Roger.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing it nod, so it's just for, along the same lines of what Chief said, anything that comes in, instead of actually showing it net a budget, which is what you can do, the revenue stream that you get from that source goes to the police department anyways.
To add to that training discussion and forfeiture, if you had a special training session, let's say we wanted to send somebody to a class on something that we would never even consider sending them to originally through our
Homeland
budget.
Security, let's say, if they had a class on Homeland Security,
Anything that
would normally not,
we would normally not have as part of our general doing business, you can use forfeiture funds to cover the special training in that regard. But if it's something that you normally do as a regular course of your business, and you've been budgeting for it year after year after year, that would be supplanting.
And there are a few of those, hazmat, there's 2 or 3 others.
Yeah.
And I know Bill's actively involved in some of those when they come up as well, because they're usually not just one municipality, it's
Right.
Androscoggin County, and we're
We have
setting
members of the
ours.
Cobra team. that
Yeah, it's
are
Cobra is the other one, I was just
Cobra
thinking of.
team, which is the hazmat,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
We have officers on that team.
Right.
We used to have 3. We have 1 now. Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss something, Sean?
That's what I just said.
I'll turn that one up.
That's what I just said.
You missed nothing, sir.
No.
Okay, I had you made a motion?
I did.
Need a second? Let's adjourn. All in favor?
Do we have birthday cake?
You all can come over to my house for birthday cake if you like.
Is there any left?
Oh, yeah. Only me and a couple little kids. How much cake can I eat? My birthday today.
Oh, happy
Twyla.
birthday.
Hey, Twyla, are you gonna
My
break this
bath
down
time
tonight?
went over with
You
my
wanna help?
kid. That's why I was a few minutes late because we had cake and ice cream after supper.
You didn't budget accordingly.